All right, well, good morning. Um, we thought it would be important as our return plans continue to have an opportunity to invite our student athletes and parents, of course, but really we wanted a chance to talk to our student athletes for the first time in a while as an entire group of our upper school, and to present what we've been working on for a few weeks now in anticipation of our return to school. We've been working really since about the end of March, trying to anticipate how and what possible options we would have to be able to continue the interscholastic sports in high school here. And things have been changing daily, almost by the hour. We've had several conversations with our state association and as well as internally with all our coaches. And we wanted to give you really the current plan and let you ask questions. And once you've heard everything, I asked Mr. Sams to be part of this so that he can present it in greater detail. I know many of you have had the opportunity to come since we were able to open up our facility back in June. And it's been great. It's been great to see everybody's interest and desire to be back together. And most importantly, during this, we've only had one brief setback where we had to close down, but it's because people have been very disciplined about following the guidelines that have been set forth, and we have to make sure we continue that because this is one area that, as we see in the professional sports world, that those that have put themselves in an actual bubble have made it work. Those that didn't are really struggling and are having to deal with this fluid situation almost on a daily basis. So that being said, I mean, that's what we're going to emphasize, and things are continuing to be changed and modified so that we can have the most current plans available to maintain the safety part of it. And again, that is what's going to keep us going forward, able to really execute our plan. So to give a brief overview, is that we understood that interscholastic sports would probably be somehow postponed. We did present options to the NIAA as a school that we thought could be executed very safely. They basically rejected every single one of those options, which included really changing how the seasons were scheduled, how to front load them, but they had no interest in really changing any of that. So they went with this modified version, which does not really begin until January. And the way they've handled it so far is that they've moved the seasons. They start with the winter season. It will go for 6 weeks. Then we will go into the fall season for 6 weeks, followed by the spring season for 6 weeks. They've also made it clear that at this time there is no postseason or championships that they're going to sponsor in any way, that really the goal is to get those 6 weeks in the best, safest way possible. We have been talking to many schools about figuring out what we can do to add value to each one of these sports seasons, particularly at the conclusion, and how to structure them so, you know, each season may look like a postseason from the very beginning, and have some qualifying opportunities so that the end will have some type of trophy or championship that can give what really has been taken away since the last spring. So we are working on that. So I've spoken to many of our student athletes who are very concerned, have been hit very hard by this. So we're working on creating those opportunities for you. And look, at this time, we're going to take as much feedback from you as possible. The intent of this webinar was not only to present a plan, but was to take feedback from you, because in the past couple years, your feedback has been instrumental in the changes we've been able to make the very positive ones, to see our program go forward. So the NIAA, we have another meeting with them coming up tomorrow with the latest update, which we will continue to work with you and to let you know what we're doing. And so we will continue to try to be a very loud voice in that situation. One of the things we want you to understand is that the plan is not to use the next few months, really from August to the end of December on just practicing. People say, well, we're just going to start practicing for our seasons. And the answer is no. That's not how we envisioned the opportunity that has been given to us. And as a team, we do see it as an opportunity. We said, okay, if this is how it's going to be, then how do we make this into a great situation? And the more time we spent on it, the more excited we became. And we realized that we had been really working towards something like this for a couple of years, but never knew that we would have a window of time to really focus on each one of our student athletes on an individual basis for a length of time that can allow them to really fulfill individual objectives under a specific set of guidelines and criteria that is going to be evaluated on a daily basis, which will help incentivize and motivate you as an individual, and also make you even more valuable to the teams that you choose to play on when the seasons do resume. So we had been talking about, well, how are we going to get kids into an optimal fitness place? And now with everything that has occurred, the emphasis on health and well-being is more important than ever. So we really decided to combine the two and then move the team practice model. We're going to push that forward for a while. And in a few minutes, Mr. Sams is going to present to you what it's going to look like, how individualized it will be, how it's really going to be about the goals that you as a student athlete want to accomplish, not just the goals that your coaches want you all to achieve, but what you want to accomplish in the time frame, what you want to feel like, how you want to, what kind of conditioning this talks about. And then you look at the sports in particular. Will you be out on your sports arenas? Absolutely. We've worked with the coaches to get and collect the information and to start creating the data that's necessary and the measurements necessary so that it's all combined with the training. But everything's going to start with this human performance profile, the individual needs of our student athletes, feedback from every coach in terms of how we're going to optimize your return to practices when we start to create that schedule, the level of accountability that's going to exist for you, right? You're not going to be competing against other kids. You're really going to be competing against yourself on a daily basis. And that's what makes it very unique. So that being said, before I hand it off to Mr. Sams, I want to say that we've invested as a school into improving our facilities. That was part of the plan before the shutdown. And to the school's credit, their commitment to our sports program here, we continued forward. We did not waver from that commitment and completed a lot of very essential and important improvements that is going to allow us to really enhance this program, to spread out even more, to give you more opportunities and more repetitions. And when we talk about the schedules, we're looking at schedules that you will be able to set up during the school day as well as after school. I know there's been a lot of talk about how we're going to do this, but we have seen the schedules that are being presented. There are opportunities throughout the day that we're working to create. You're going to have that they're going to carry into the after school portion of it. And, the word we want to spread is that it's not just going to be focused on student athletes exclusively. This is really for all our students. So we know that the state requires a physical education credit that every student has to have to graduate. Well, this is a way you're going to be able to do it. So this is going to count towards that credit. So on top of everything else, this is going to check another box for you. I know people have asked about club sports and things like that. And look, we don't know what the status of club sports are going to be once we get into this fall. But we are going to continue to do this. We're going to offer what we do to all of you. It's going to really be exclusive to our Meadows kids. And we're going to maximize all our facilities, all our staff that we've been able to expand. And we feel like we're going to be able to fulfill everybody's needs during this time. So that being said, Mr. Sams, why don't you give them your presentation?
All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. As Mr. Gruber said, we are in an interesting time, but we have an incredible opportunity to take advantage of that. You guys have shown an unwavering amount of enthusiasm when it comes to your athletic development and wanting to be involved in improving your fitness and your conditioning so you can be the most well-rounded student athlete that you can be. With that being said, the whole goal of the human performance department is to not only support athletics, but to support our students. Because we don't see this as a one-track model, as in, hey, working out is only for athletes, because there's a larger picture, there's a bigger picture that affects the whole student. So whenever we're thinking about human performance, we're actually alluding to improving and optimizing performance in every parameter possible, right? And what we do, as far as training inside the weight room, whenever we're doing conditioning, whenever we're exercising, benefits us, our brain and our body. They're not mutually exclusive. They actually are interdependent. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go through a brief presentation that's going to talk about how we're going to go through how this human performance profiling and the athletic development model is going to go throughout this time. And I'm going to keep the presentation fairly brief. I'm going to show you a few examples so that we can have enough time to answer everyone's questions. Now, with that being said, just give me a brief moment. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through this presentation together. All right, so as everyone sees, we have a new logo. The logo is awesome. So let's follow along with me. Now, before we get started, we have to address the elephant in the room. We must remain safe. We have a complete safety protocol that we go through every single time a student comes into the human performance facility, any of our facilities. We want to make sure we check in. So you bring your phone, scan the QR code. After you scan, you make sure you come in, you sanitize, make sure that you're sanitized, and every time you come in and out of the room, you sanitize. And every hour on the hour, we will be cleaning the weight room. We do so all throughout the day, and then our custodial staff has done a phenomenal job of making sure everything is clean to the T every single morning and every single night. So the weight room is an exquisite place and it's extraordinarily clean, but we have to do our parts. We want to make sure that we're wearing our face coverings and we're going to make sure that we are remaining socially distanced and remaining safe. Now, with that being said, the next thing we're going to do is train smart. Training hard is easy, but training with a direction and meaning makes training hard exponentially more beneficial. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go over what the human performance profile looks like, how we're going to execute this step by step, what we'll do for our remote students in the event that they cannot come to campus, why, and I'm going to give you a couple brief bullet points of why we want to develop the whole student, and we'll go into this in more detail later, and then we're going to open up for a Q&A. Now, with that being said, before I want to get started, I want you to thank Mick Corrigan. He's allowing me to share his information. He's been essential in the process of testing and being a guinea pig and just being an incredible student athlete, student, and a teammate. Now, with that being said, we're going to the profile. So this is what the human performance profile will look like. Go to your left and it says tier level. Tier levels so how you perform. So you tier level, with that performance GPA, it's going to be based off of all levels of fitness. Okay. Okay.
You can just start to, your sound is working again. So if you want
Working.
to start from the beginning from this page.
This page. Okay. So, um, I'll start over again. So going and looking at this, the athlete profile, we'll have all your information put up, and I'm gonna briefly explain everything that's going on here. So if you look to your far left, we'll have your classification and we'll have your tier level. Now your tier level is going to be a rating based on all of your physical attributes. Okay, so that has to do with your sport specific testing, basic strength testing to see exactly where you're at. And after we collect all of that data, we'll accumulate a GPA. Now, this isn't something that's going to be a grade, like this is your grade. This is just giving us a snapshot for you, us as a human performance staff, and the coaches to know exactly where you're at and the areas that we need to progress. Now, you will be able to move through those tier groups, and I'll explain those tier groups as we get later on in the presentation. But this is incredibly important because it allows us to know exactly where we're at and what performance measures we're going to use to improve your performance. Now, all of this is to aggregate all of this data. This has been based off of over 40 years of accumulating norms for student athletes at our age level. So they've been adjusted for that. And so that way we can make sure that we can progress. And the progression is all based on you. So this isn't, these progressions are based on where you're at in relation to your body weight and where you're at as a student athlete. Okay. So we'll go through a movement screen and see exactly where your movement is, and we'll track data on that. And then we'll track your performance. As we can see, we have a full performance profile here for Mick for his football. And this will look a little bit different if we're addressing basketball. Now, as we move over here to the chart, this is extremely important. This will be updated daily, right? There will be daily wellness questionnaires that'll go out and they'll be pushed directly to everyone's app. It takes less than a minute to 2 minutes max to fill out. And what it's gonna do is gonna give us a snapshot of, hey, how well did you hydrate today? How well did you sleep? How well was your nutrition that day? And there's going to be questions that guide you through that. How was your mood, as in how did you feel? And they'll be more detailed as we go into that. Your rate of perceived exertion. How hard was yesterday for you? And how are you feeling? And your freshness. How fresh do you feel today? Now, all of this data is going to be aggregated over time. So we don't want to look at this as, hey, what is this snapshot today? We're going to be able to map where you start from and then where we get to right before season starts. Now, when we're looking at all this, I want y'all to think of this more as a sport academy, because that's going to be the approach. Because we're going to be training everybody. We'll be in our cohorts, but we'll be training everybody and treating everybody as an individual, because it's based on you. You're not going to be based on what everybody else can do. It's going to be based on how well you can perform and how well we can progress you as an individual. Okay. So how are we going to do this? So we're going to go, the first step, we're going to go through an individual fitness assessment. We'll test all your strength, your energy system, which is your cardiovascular development. We'll test your range of motion, and we'll test some of your power ratings. So that'll be your vertical jump, your broad jump, any of your speed testing. And as we get into like our tennis athletes and our throwers, we'll have some accelerometers and some and radars to see, hey, how hard are you serving? What's the mile per hours on that? And we're going to be able to track that and correlate that with all of your other data. Okay. And then after that, this is going to be based on all of the sport coaches. They're going to do an individual sport assessment. Like, hey, what are the needs? What's the needs that you need to develop? And what are the skills that we're going to utilize to develop you? Okay. After that, we'll create a profile and everybody will be able to see it. It'll be pushed directly into your app and it will always be updated in real time. So every time that you come into the fitness center or you're in practice, everything is going to be tracked, right? You're going to be able to put all your data in, you'll log it, and then you'll be able to pull up your report at any time, and then you'll be able to see exactly where you're at. And then after that, after the profile is created, we'll have the goals that are set so we know exactly what we need to work to. Now, after we get out of our tier, right, we'll have a next set of goals of how we're going to progress. Okay. So this is just a brief explanation of the tier groups. Okay. So there's two foundation groups, right? There's two foundations. So that's foundation one, foundation two. That's just getting through the basics, a lot of body weight movements and baseline strength and mobility. Make sure that you function very well. And then we'll go through tier one, tier two, tier three. Now, I don't want you guys to look at this like a hierarchy, like, oh man, if I'm a tier three athlete, I'm way better than the foundation one athlete. That's not the case, because there's going to be skills and there's going to be fitness. Okay. And then over here, this is how we're tracking your fitness and where you're at. And then we're going to move you through these tier groups to improve your fitness. And so based on that, we're going to have a 5.0 scale. So it's like an unweighted GPA, and it'll be 1 through 5. And after we aggregate all your data from all your testing, we'll say, hey, you're at a foundation 1 and you have a GPA of 4.2. Once you get to 4.5, you automatically go into the next tier, which would be foundation 2, and you work your way up through there. Okay. Now, for our remote students, this is going to be case by case. So we're going to be taking these in depending on your situation, because everybody's situation is going to be different. Many of you who are listening now reached out to me over the break when COVID was happening and asked for at-home workouts. And the at-home workouts were based on the equipment that you had. This is going to be very similar, but there's going to be digital feedback. I'm going to have to be able to see you and evaluate you at some point. Either Mr. Norman, Coach Norman, or Coach Kiana. Okay, so whenever you guys field these questions, if anybody is not coming to campus, please note to just send me an email, and then we will be able to adjust to your situation. All right, so developing the whole student. Now, there's a dearth of information of data that shows that physical enhancement improves all areas of cognition. There's higher academic achievement in verbal, perceptual processing, testing in math, and even understanding languages. Every facet of learning is intertwined with physical development. So whenever you're training, okay, I would like to use movement and physical activity as laying the foundation, like laying a highway, right? And everything that you learn is like the cars, the buses, and the transportation system that rides that highway, so to speak. As you become as you get more physically capable and better physical condition, your ability to have higher levels of cognition and processing improves. There's plenty of studies done on this. I've done a few pilot studies at my previous institution on this, on multiple levels of athletes, whether it was at college or at the middle school and high school level. There's a lot of information on this. So neglecting this piece would be negligence on our part. So as we collect all of this data, we're going to be correlating that to how our performance is in the classroom. Okay, and so we're going to be able to paint a snapshot. Now, all this information, it won't be personal. It won't be like, if we publish this information, your name won't be stated. Everything will be confidential. But whenever we have that conversation between ourselves, like at the athletic department or the human performance department with the individual student, we'll be able to show like, hey, based on your daily wellness questionnaire and some of your biometric data, whenever you're not feeling so well, you don't do so well on your next days in your test or in your next quarter. And we'll be able to guide you through that with data, so we're not shooting in the dark. Because there's a lot of times, especially with something that I'll explain to y'all, it's called HRV. When your HRV tanks, right, and that's what the daily wellness questionnaire is going to give us. When it tanks, your ability to process and your anxiety goes up through the roof. So whenever you're testing, you can't concentrate, and you're wondering like, man, what's going on with me? Well, sleeping, nutrition, hydration status. I mean, if you're dehydrated, you can lose anywhere from 7 to 10 points on your HRV, which is going to decrease your brain processing time by over 2%. And 2% sounds small, but that's significant. I mean, we're talking the difference between an A plus and an A minus, an A minus and a B plus, which has real world implications. So with that being said, I want to make sure we have plenty of time to field you guys' questions. If there's anything else you want to say to this, Mr. Rivera, let me know. If not, I'll turn the screen share off and we'll open it up to Q&A.
Thank you for that. As you can see, we really did view this as an opportunity. And again, Mr. Sams had a very interesting conversation with an individual in his field at the University of Michigan. And what we already knew, he confirmed for us, is that we haven't heard of any schools like you doing what you are doing. And we wanted to make sure that that was a big part of what we were presenting here, is that what we're going to do is take this time and maximize it and do something that will set us up going forward. And I think the question when we complete this period of time is, how do we continue doing this in the future? Because people are going to see remarkable results from this. So I'm going to go into the Q&A portion of this for a few minutes and then conclude with a few remarks. Okay. So question one is, do you have any information regarding any changes to NCAA recruiting rules given the changes to the sports seasons? We are actually working on that. We have been receiving some information, but nothing concrete yet. But what we have been talking about here is creating, being able to still get our student athletes recruited, even if we're not going to have sports season. So we're using this methodology that Mr. Sams is introducing from the training point. And we're also going to start creating profiles for our athletes and start creating individual training and sports-specific highlight films that we can use to be able to allow the students to get that information out to colleges. So we want to show the level of improvement these kids have gone through during the start of this through our metrics, as well as being able to show it when we put them on the field or their fields of choice. So we are going to create that because there's going to be an amount of time we're going to lose. And so they haven't really given us any specific guidelines other than they're coming. So we have spoken to a few college coaches on this and say, look, right now everybody has to do the best they can. We are we have a unique advantage here. We're going to utilize all of our resources here. We brought on a videographer here who's a master at editing, who we've already talked to about assisting us in this process. So we're going to have a lot of opportunity to get out there, a lot of time to take the kids as we start to have the conversations this fall for the kids that are looking to continue to be recruited. So that is something we spoke to our college counselors about 2 weeks ago, and we're working on that plan to get that going. So yeah, you can start communicating. You can communicate electronically with college coaches immediately. That is something that they have allowed to do, and they started the process a year earlier. So I mean, if you're going into the start of your junior year, the process is beginning, where it used to happen a lot later. So this is something we'll touch upon and spend a little more time on with you. In regards to the physical improvements, one of the main ones we're working on right now is a second fitness room. So we had already done all the measurements and all the work and cleaned out the field house that it kind of lays at the center of all of our field sports. So as you're walking up to the football, baseball, softball, and the tennis courts, the area there was being underutilized. We saw it as an opportunity to get those kids that are on the sports on the outside to be able to have a much quicker commute to their facilities and to be able to do their training right there rather than have to walk all the way and wait, by the way, when the gyms were getting too busy, to be able to do it right from there. So we're going to be able to double the time. So the field house is currently being completed. with a new flooring being put in, and equipment is going to be transferred over there, as well as all the equipment that has been purchased. So Coach Sams and his team can really double the amount of effort that they have already been doing, get more kids involved, get them more time, which was a big deal for us. You also know that all the tennis courts were redone. All the cracks on all the courts were redone, so we're still completing some of that work. And the gymnasium, the auxiliary gym had an old multi-purpose floor that really did not allow for the sports and everybody that wanted to train. And we needed to make sure that all of our facilities could be maximized, because we're going to have to spread people around a lot more. So a brand new wooden floor, state-of-the-art wooden floor, has been installed in the auxiliary gym. So we have two gyms that could host any event at the highest level in both those facilities. So we still have equipment coming in as we speak, and we invested a great deal into our baseball and now moving into our softball field this year, into adding what we're going to do for that field. So we're going to continue what we're doing there. And in regards to lower school, all I know is that we were asked to create these spaces to be able to host everybody. So I know that there are lower school improvements that are being discussed now, but right now we were asked to create and optimize the facilities that we have so that we could host everybody. Ms. Larson made the comment that the state requires 2 physical education credits to graduate. So just to clarify that. What does the overlap for games and practices for athletes playing multiple sports? So if you're talking about, there really won't be much of an overlap. I think the idea was, and here's the presentation here, the practices for the winter begin Saturday, January 2nd, and the first contest begins January 15th. The overlap looks a bit like this. So it's really going to be for the fall season. Football practice can start on February 13th. The official practice will begin Saturday, February 20th, and the first contest Friday, March 5th of 2021. And then the spring practice begins Saturday, April 3rd, and the first contest on Friday, April 16th.
Do you want to show them that?
So we will send that out, since that was released this morning at a meeting that we had. But that was really the first look at what the calendar is going to look like for those 6-week seasons. So in regards to middle school programs, we did enter a different league that is looking to figure out what they can do. And they are actually looking to front load the non-contact sports in the fall. So we're going to look at what they're going to present. But right now, the program that we're creating, this human performance profile, is for 6th through 12th grade. So we're going to start creating those baselines for kids that are age appropriate, and we're going to build the kids, and it will be part of their physical education cohort program. You want to expand on that a little bit, Charles? Really just the middle school part of it.
Yeah, we'll be doing something. We'll be doing something for the middle school students as well. They'll have a similar profile, but it won't be as detailed. It'll be more. It'll still be detailed, but it'll be more. It'll be more general, as far as what's needed for their age range from 6th to 8th grade.
How often will the athletes be training at school? Once or twice a week, after school only? So that's the schedule we're working on, and our goal is to give the kids the opportunity to train daily, to look at their schedule on how it's going to be presented, when the opportunities are available to them through the school day. We've looked at whether it's in their flex period, which we've discussed, and also potentially in study hall periods. and during, potential free times that they may have, not only having to put everybody in the after school. So do you want to expand on that a little bit as well in terms of what you're doing with the schedule?
Yeah, so we're trying to give as many opportunities for the kids as possible. So, in the because everybody's from middle school to upper school, the schedules and the times are different. So, in upper school, we'll have 80-minute time blocks. So we'll have more opportunities to be able to meet the needs of the students, and it's based on their individual requirements for being in class, their schedules, and their rotations. So it's going to be more, like we said, that's why we chose this model, to be able to be more individualized and keep the kids in their cohort. Because of the nature of us having to adjust, it's going to be easier for us to adjust throughout the school year, especially this first semester, to accommodate all of our students.
If we have these informal practices for sports, then how would the attendance work? The first part is this. The way you look at it in terms of order of importance as we start, it will be the trainings. So there will be a check-in. So we will be able to monitor every day that you are involved in the training. That's really going to be the attendance to this. So, I mean, each training can vary in terms of time as well. They're not all going to be exactly the same time. But what we're hoping and we're looking to do is get everyone committed to how these trainings will work. So if it's a 30-minute training, a 20-minute training, a 40-minute training, it's gonna be spread out very differently depending on the day. Practices, as we're starting to look at it, they're really going to be in part of the training as we start. So Coach Sams will move the kids from from the fitness piece of it to the training with their team or with their coaches piece of it, and what they will accomplish in those days. And that's again going to show, that's going to be part of the attendance. So schedules are going to be created for all the students in terms of what sport, because we also have multi-sport athletes and we have kids that play 2 to 3 sports. So they're not going to go to football every day and they're not going to go to basketball every day. We have to be able to spread them out. So we're looking at how we do that so they have an opportunity to do their sports as well as their training at least twice a week and have to have that opportunity. So yeah, attendance is a very important part of this, because we do want to optimize this. And that's why we're hoping that we get people to really understand, to look at their daily schedule, because there are certain things that are being removed from the schedule after school. You're not going to see the study hall after school, right? So we're really going to have an opportunity to go directly, because we really do want to get people off campus sooner than later. We want to get them home sooner than later, since we're not going to be competing and going late into the evening. So we're going to try to set a schedule with a hard deadline on what time we really want everybody to be off campus. But the conversation will be between Charles and the coaches on when kids go to their practices and when they'll be in the training. So we'll have a very pretty hard schedule that will kind of direct that for you. And even again, if you on the online learning days, you'll have your training schedule on the app. So if you happen to be on an online learning schedule, you'll have the opportunity to be able to do that from home as well. So you don't feel like you have to return to do that. The tennis schedule, what we're looking at, again, all the sports are going to be included in this. So part of that is there will be trainings that will go on after school. We don't know what the clinics or how they will look like in that regard, but how we right now are going to be doing is we will be giving kids an opportunity to be a part of this training piece of it. So we're working with Coach JL and Coach Charles to create that schedule as well, that some will carry into the after school. And in fact, probably a large number of them, the majority of them will probably be there. But there will be an opportunity for, if the schedules match up, to be able to do it during the school day as well. So you'll look at kind of the PE schedule, for middle school, and they will have that opportunity. And we'll move some of the kids out there a few days a week um, to be able to train on the tennis courts. And again, once we get a good sense of what the kids' schedules look like, we'll know. And then you two will have the choice on what works better for your schedule. But we will have an after-school component to our tennis program for you to train with the coach. Currently, the high school PE credit requirement is 2 years of PE or 4 sports seasons. How will the 3 reduced sports season offered this year count towards a grade? So you're not going to be in any way punished for the reduced season. And again, look at it this way. If you're involved in this first semester program, that will count as part of your credit, right? So that can move towards, even if you don't play 3 sports in the fall or 2 sports this time and just do 1, and you will have had a full year of between your sport of choice for those 6 weeks and the training from August to December. So that will help you fulfill that. But in no way are you going to be, not receive your credit under the circumstances we currently have. Is the corral going to provide more nutritious foods for lunch to fit this new model of athletics? That's a conversation that started, I would say, right before all this began, Charles?
Yes.
That the corral and Charles and all of us sat in a room and already started talking about revamping those menus, if you want to expand on that part.
Yes, we began our conversations with providing more nutritious options and making them more accessible, so they can just grab and go, opposed to having a lot of food that's not necessarily the best for our students. I know for sure that we did remove sodas, so that was the first step. But since due to the big shift in everything that we're doing for COVID, I'm waiting for Alan and his team to finalize how we're going to be shuttling our kids through, and then we're gonna change the menu to be able to ensure that we're not holding the lines up, because we won't be able to have an exorbitant amount of kids go through at the same time. So after the corral has everything finalized, we're gonna go in, we're gonna fine tune a few things about what's offered, so the students can make their best decisions. And one of the pillars of our mission, our philosophy of the Human Performance Program is to provide education and nutrition. So they will be getting the nutrition and education of how to make better decisions as well. And that's part of the profile, and that's part of our system moving forward.
Is the human performance profile system required to do by all student athletes this fall? So, is it required? That's an interesting way to put it. We're hoping that we start by saying it's strongly encouraged right now, that we want to get every student to benefit from this. We have not talked about it in terms of requiring it. Now, in terms of what we talked about in terms of the credit piece of it, then look at it in terms of as if you're pursuing a credit, then you should do it. Second, if you're looking to really maximize the opportunity that's presented in front of you, you should do it. The goal is not only to benefit the individual student athlete, but to have them come into their seasons more prepared than anybody in the state. That's really another piece of this we're talking about is, we want to prevent kids from getting injured. We want them as healthy as possible. We want them as happy as possible. We want them as excited as possible. We want them to do this together. We want them to feel the experience of going through this together, to know that it's unique and it's to their benefit. So I don't like to use the word required in this, because I don't require anyone to play a sport either. I know that, again, there's a credit component to this, but this is the most unique time that we have. And I'm hoping that it is encouraged from all angles, because we feel like it's going to enhance everything that we're currently going through. It's going to help them academically. It's going to help them so much physically. And again, we're here to cater to every individual right now. We would never have been able to do that before. we were looking at this from such a macro place because of how schedules work. You know, you hope people can be there in the summer, but if they're not, I mean, we can't require people to be here in the summer. They typically travel. So they come back and you really don't have the opportunity to spend with an individual. We get to create something so different that will be to their benefit. And it's, again, we just see it as a win-win. So we hope that, again, we will work with whatever schedule we need to, but what we're not going to do, and I see that's another question, is that we're not going to pull kids from an academic class for this, and we're not going to pull them from an elective class. Like we're really looking for how their schedules fit, and we know that there is some opportunity within that flex period that we're looking at. But we've been talking about this a lot for a couple of years, not knowing we were going to be in this situation. But we're not pulling them from any of those situations. Is that, you know? Do you want to expand on that, Charles? You look like you want to add something to that.
Yes. I would like to further and say that because I'm trying to make sure that we're reading the question the right way. Is there a difference in participating in the exercising or taking the data? So if you have concerns with the data and privacy, the way that I operate is is HIPAA laws. So if there's a concern about privacy, your data will not be breached or will not be shared without your consent or without you knowing. So that's number one. And if you could type, if you wanting clarification on that, or just a participation piece. And if you want to further expand on that, you can also just send me an email if you don't want that to be voiced. But I just want to make sure that we're answering the question. But whenever we're looking at when it comes to this data, it's very important is to be able to have an assessment, or you're just shooting in the dark. If I was teaching a class, or for example, whenever I was the head tutor in my exercise science department in college, if I didn't take an assessment of where they were at, then I wouldn't know how to help them. So what the system does is allows me to know exactly how I can benefit each kid, each student athlete, each student, and from every factor, and extend it to all of our students.
Charles, how many people will we allow in the weight room at once to allow for social distancing?
At the current moment, we have only allowed 10 at a time. NIAA has allowed us to do more, but we have kept it at the initial number of 10 per training session.
And yes, we will, right at this point, still be looking to offer our after school tennis training. But again, we're working on the specifics of what that will look like. So we will be updating that one probably by early next week as we have a little more information. Do you have to be a student athlete in order to participate in this program? You do not. That's something we just want to continue to emphasize, is that you don't have to be. This is for everybody. This is for everybody's benefit. And we strongly encourage all our kids to participate in this. Will these trainings start August 17th or later? We have, in many ways, we've already begun these trainings. They've been going on, and we've already started creating the profiles. But our official start date will be August 17th. So yeah, we will be continuing what we started. So it gave us an opportunity to take the kids that have been here and already start collecting information and creating these baselines for them. But as a whole, yes, we will be starting on the 17th. In order to participate in this human performance program, do the kids need to complete the sports physical that's required for sports? So we're going to continue to follow the NIAA regulations, which is when they come in as freshmen, they're required to have a physical, and it is a 2-year. Yeah, so the physical is good for 2 years at a time.
But is her kid not playing a sport?
Well, regardless, okay.
Okay.
So they will need to have a physical basically the same as if they were playing a sport. So yes. How do these children sign up for the Human Performance Program? Charles, you want to expand on that one?
Well, if you're already a student athlete, you would have to opt out. You would have to say that you're not doing it because by default, with even though it's not required, we're coming in with the assumption that you will be participating. So if you're not a student athlete, then you would just open up the communications. You would email Mr. Gruber or myself, and then we'll just start the process as if we were doing it with the student athlete.
When will the training schedule be sent out? How do we get it onto the schedule, or do you assign them depending on their schedule? Not clear on how to get the training. Thanks. You want to explain how we're doing the schedule so far?
Yeah, so the schedule so far, we started with the fall sports that were here, and that was coordinated with the sport coaches. The moving forward, the schedule is going to depend on our school schedules. And so once the school schedules are set, we're going to be able to allocate the time blocks and see how much time and how much space that we can utilize, and then we'll be plugging people in based on their schedule and the availability. So we will be definitely be in contact, and we'll send out an email to everyone to show the schedule, and so we'll be clear on that. But we have to wait until, because we're basing all our scheduling around the school, around the academic schedule, and then based on the academic schedule, we're going to build our schedule from that.
So I think the message we really want to send to our student athletes and those parents that are um, on this web cam, that we know how difficult it's been from the moment. And we saw what happened to our seniors that just graduated, and how, this was just taken away from them and there was nothing that could be done. And this time around, we did not want to have that same feeling, that we were going to have something in place that could carry us for a while, and hoping that this situation improves. But we know that there's still a challenge ahead, and every conversation we have as a department, as coaches, everything goes back to, we know that this has been incredibly difficult, emotional. It feels like something has been taken away, and it has. And none of us could have anticipated it. We certainly empathize with what you're experiencing, and we want to make the best of it, and we want to make you better for this. So, and we're going to do everything we possibly can. So encourage them. Look, we want their feedback. We want to know what's going on. We want to know what they want to accomplish even beyond this part of it. We want to hear their ideas, because they always come up with incredible ideas from their perspective. But it's important that we do this together. They have a coaching staff that's ready and committed to do whatever they need to do. And understand that it's not just the student athletes that have been affected. I've had coaches that have been incredibly emotional coming to see me in my office or on a Zoom, that just cannot believe what is happening. And they're going through it too. So we got to do this safely. I think it goes back to the kind of the premise of this thing. And if we do it safely, and people cooperate and follow the direction we're going to provide, we're going to get this done. And people are going to look around and say, how are they doing it? And how did they do that? And look at how the kids responded to it, and everything is going to come out okay. So I know we're going to have more of these, but again, we're looking to create these opportunities going forward for everybody. I see that there are a couple more questions, but at the end of the day, let's see, with the reduced sports schedule this year, will cheerleading still be offered for the fall and winter season? Yes, cheerleading will be part of it. So we've got that in mind here in terms of the training, so that will also be part of it. So we're ready to take this challenge on with you. Um, and funny thing is, we're just excited to get back and to see the kids doing what they love to do. So there are no more questions. Charles, any last comments before we exit?
Oh yes, I just want to piggyback off of what you said, Claude, and just try to make this as much of an experience as possible. Talking with a lot of people around the country, there's not many people being proactive about this, and I feel very fortunate to be in a place where we are being proactive and we're doing everything we're being very methodical, safe, and doing a very humane thing by making sure that we can enhance the experience and be safe and be on the cutting edge of performance at the same time. I know right now it seems very things seem a little murky, so to speak, but the only way to go about this is to go through it. And I think that we're going to do a phenomenal job. And I'm actually excited to get back to coaching and seeing all the students on campus and, doing what we love to do. So I want to thank everybody for coming in, letting us present this to you and giving us the opportunity to serve y'all throughout this school year.
Thank you.